my lovely creatives! In today's tutorial I will teach you how to make this flower drawing in color pencils. My name is Irene and I'm an artist and illustrator from the Netherlands and I'm based in the UK. I love drawing in color pencils and I'm going to teach you exactly how to do it. We're going to follow really easy step-by-step steps, so grab yourself some materials and let's get started. When I make a drawing in color pencils, I choose my main colors first. So in this case, for this iris, it's purple, green and orange. Then I make sure that my pencils have really nice sharp tips. So I use a pencil sharpener or a knife and I sharpen my pencils. I love doing this from the start because it makes my drawing process so much easier. So I decide on the colors and make sure my tools are ready to get started. For today's easy color pencil tutorial, I picked this iris. I think it's a beautiful flower and it has lots of texture and lines and I think it's perfect to draw in color pencil. As always, I use my reference photo, their inspiration and as an example, but my picture is not going to be a direct replica. I'm not tracing the picture, I'm looking at the shapes and I'm creating a flower that is sort of similar to what I see in the photo, but I'm not too focused in creating a photorealistic copy. If I wanted to make a photo, I would just take a photo, right? Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with tracing a photo, especially when you're learning, when you're starting out, or when you make a portrait and you want the picture to be really realistic and all the proportions to be exactly the same. There's definitely a time and a place to trace a picture. But for me, today, I'm just going to freestyle it and to see where I get by just using my vision and my hands. When you draw in color pencils, it is important to start light. So start with a really light sketch. I like to sketch in color pencils and not with graphite. I find that the graphite is a bit shiny and sometimes the color pencil doesn't layer that well over graphite. So I tend to just sketch in color pencil. And you might also notice, if you watch some of my color pencil videos, that I almost never use an eraser. I just let all the lines and all the little lines be part of the final drawing, and if they're not quite in the right place, that is absolutely fine. You can see how light these lines are here and how slowly I'm building it up. And I'm really taking my time to come to the right value and the intensity of color that I'm looking for. So just really take your time, and if there are some lines out of place, that is absolutely fine, and I promise you they sort of fade away in the background. You won't really see them once you've finished your final drawing. So you can see I'm slowly starting to layer the base colors on this flower. I'm happy with the rough shapes and these little leaves at the top, and I'm going to really lightly just color in the areas that are going to be purple. Really taking my time for it. So I'm just adding a little extra flower here in the middle, extra petal. And I'm just color blocking each area out. Really lightly, really gently, no pressure, small movements, and just really evenly color this in. You may have noticed that my paper is fairly small today. And the reason for that is really simple. Color pencil drawings take quite a long time to make. They're not difficult, but people often really overestimate how difficult a color pencil drawing is. It's a very easy thing to make, I think, just as long as you're patient and just slowly layer it and really take your time. But it takes quite a long time to make because the pencil strokes are quite fine and each stroke is quite thin or quite light, and to layer it until you have the intensity of color that you're looking for just takes time and a little bit of patience. So the larger your paper is, the longer it will take to complete your drawing. So I often tell my students that, especially when they're starting with color pencils, to use an A5 or smaller piece of paper so they can complete their drawing in an hour's time or an hour and a half. It's quite nice to make multiple smaller drawings when you're starting out and not to start an enormous project that will take you days to complete and perhaps can be a bit overwhelming. So I always recommend to start small, and you can always go bigger next time if you're really enjoying it. So I'm making this floral picture and I just started to add a bit of orange to the leaves as well. You can see I am just color blocking the areas out. I always find it much easier to see what direction my drawing is going into once I have added some color to most of the areas I want to color in. So the color blocking stage is very important because it gives you an idea of the shapes and the proportions, and if you're happy with the direction your drawing is going into. Drawing in color pencil is much easier than people think. It just takes a bit of patience, and I cannot say this enough. It's also quite, for me, it's a really mindful way of making art. Drawing in color pencil has all these little movements and these little shapes that you're creating with your wrist and with your arm, and that sort of repetitive movement, I find it very, very soothing. I also very often take color pencils with me when I'm going on holiday. Because they're small, they're easy to carry, you don't have to worry about spilling or stains or leaking in your luggage. It's not a fluid, so you're allowed to take them with you on a plane. And I just really love carrying them with me when I go somewhere to do some art when I'm traveling. The only thing is that they're very fragile. You really need to treat your color pencils with a little bit of respect and a bit of a gentle touch. So make sure you put them in a case that is a bit soft, or that you wrap them in a t-shirt or in some clothes or a scarf that keep it safe, and make sure you don't throw them on the floor. Just really teach them with a little bit of a gentle touch. There's nothing as sad as discovering that you've dropped one of your favorite pencils and that the inside, the lead, is broken into 1,000 pieces, and every time you try to sharpen your pencil it breaks. It's really not fun, and color pencils can be quite expensive, and it's really not very nice to find out that one of them is damaged. So you can see I'm slowly starting to add a little bit more color to these petals, and I'm trying to keep the edges a little bit loose. This is a flower that has really a lot of movement. It really has a sort of soft feel to it. It's not rigid at all. It's very flowy, and I want to make sure that my lines represent that. So I'm making sure that the edges have a bit of movement in them as well, and that they're not straight. And although I'm creating a slightly darker color, I'm still using only very little pressure on my pencil. I do not want to go in too dark quite yet. So I'm taking my time. I look at that picture to get an idea of where the darker areas and where the lighter areas are on these flowers. But I'm also allowing myself the freedom to make it up a little bit and to change some things. Because the lines on these flowers are quite clear, there's almost like a stripy pattern, I start to add those fairly early on, even though I would consider this a detail that I would normally do a little bit later. So usually I save the details to later in my drawing process. Because they're such a big part of what this flower looks like, I start adding them in a little bit sooner. In this color pencil tutorial, I'm really trying to explain to you what my thought process is and what order I do things in. So at the moment I'm looking at the picture and I am sort of looking at those lines, and I'm trying to create a similar type of texture, a similar type of pattern on my own flower. And it's absolutely fine if you miss out a line, or if you have a little bit of extra space and you add in an extra line. Each of these individual flowers has a different pattern on it, so it doesn't have to be exactly the same as in the photo. Feel free to change things up a little bit, but I'm trying to create a texture that is similar, or a pattern that is similar to what I see in the pictures. So I'm slowly and steadily making my color pencil drawing a little bit darker. if you would rate the amount of pressure you put in your pencil from 0 to 10, and then 10 being the darkest color, where you really draw very rough with lots of pressure, and 0 being really gentle touch, where basically you don't touch the paper at all and you don't get any color on the paper, then I'm currently maybe at level 5. So I put a little bit of pressure on my pencil, a little bit more intensity, but I'm still being very gentle. So I have that whole range from 6 to 10 still to explore later on to create darker colors. And if I can give you any tips for drawing in color pencil, I would recommend staying on the lighter side for as long as you can. Because as long as you stay in that 1 to 5 range and you really keep your strokes gentle and keep a little bit of a light color on your paper, you can make lots of changes to your drawing. But as soon as you go in really dark, then whatever you've made is set in stone and it's really hard to make any changes. And color pencils do not work very well with erasers. It's quite hard to remove mistakes that you make. And although I don't really like to think in mistakes, I think that all the little accidents and create beauty and make your drawing more interesting. It is nice to be able to change a line or to make a leaf a bit bigger or a bit smaller, change the direction a little bit without having to erase it. And what I do sometimes, if I really must, is with a very sharp craft knife, scrape off a little bit of my paper if there's an area that I really need to remove. But it basically damages the paper and you remove the upper layer of the paper. You can also use a kneading eraser. A kneading eraser is a little bit sticky and it basically lifts the pigments off the paper rather than rubbing it out. But even that is not very efficient, so I would recommend leaving your erasers at the side, leaving your craft knife to a later stage until you have a bit more experience with drawing in color pencils, and just accept every line that you put down as being valid and being allowed to be part of the drawing. There's no need for correcting mistakes. Every line that you put down is beautiful and it's all allowed to stay, even if it is a little bit wonky. So you can see I'm slowly starting to add a little bit of pink to the purple. The purple tone that I prepared beforehand, that I put ready here, is a bit of a cold tone, and this pink is much warmer, and I want the overall feel of the drawing to be a little bit warmer, to change the tone a little bit. So I'm adding in a bit of pink with my purples. And you can see I'm using a mix of different brand color pencils. I am a huge believer of using the materials that you have. So although there is brands of color pencils that I prefer, that I think are a little bit nicer than others, there's brands that are a little bit cheaper or perhaps more meant for children and not for professional artists that don't have much pigment. So I do, because I draw with color pencils a lot, I have my own preferences, but I am a strong believer in just using what you have first. So if you're new in drawing in color pencils, just have a look at the materials that you have, experiment with them, draw with them, have some fun, and if you find that this is something that you want to do more, or a material that really that you really love and that you really enjoy, then invest in a small box of more expensive pencils, and then you can slowly grow that collection until you have all the colors that you need. I do think that to immediately buy an enormous box of really expensive pencils is really not necessary. Plus, you might find in a few weeks' time or a few months' time that you want to try pastel pencils or watercolor pencils, or that you want to use ink pencils that dry up waterproof. There's so many different options out there. So I cannot say this enough. I'm trying to be a bit of a minimalist. I'm not very good with this, but there's so much stuff in the world already. Use what you have first, see how you enjoy it, experiment with it, and you can always get more later on. It's okay if your pencils are not the highest quality, if you're not selling your work. It doesn't have to be light fast. That's absolutely fine. The paper that I'm using, today I am using Bookingford hot pressed, I think it's 190 GSM drawing paper. I use it to paint on as well sometimes. It's a very smooth paper. I'm very happy with it. I like it a lot. And it's perfect for drawing with charcoal or with color pencil because it's very smooth. It's really perfect to blend and to layer your colors with. I said this in my color pencil class from Monday, from earlier this week that I posted earlier. We were drawing a cat together. I said this there. I really do like working on textured paper as well. So there's nothing wrong with having a bit of tooth to your paper, a bit of texture to your paper. It gives a different look as well, but I think when you're starting out, having smoother drawing paper is a little bit easier. I do like textured paper though. I think it can give a really interesting texture and look to your artwork. So again, try with what you have, experiment a little bit, see how you find it. If you're enjoying it, you can always branch out and get a different paper next time or try things out. You can see I'm slowly starting to add more color to the paper. And I'm slowly building up my values. Something that is kind of interesting fact, at least I think it's interesting, is that it doesn't matter so much if your color is the exact same color as what you are drawing, but the values are very important. So the areas that you make dark and the areas that are light really have a big effect on how realistic the drawing looks. So I'm slowly increasing these values and making sure that I have enough contrast and enough values in the areas that I need them to be in. Because I chose two purples and a pink today to create the sort of purple areas of this flower, and that might not be the exact same color as that the flower in the photo or the flower in reality has. But it doesn't matter so much as long as you make sure that your values are right, so that your darks are dark enough and your lights are light enough, and that you have a good contrast between the two, or as much contrast as necessary. And a good trick that can help you with this is to look at the reference picture that you are drawing and changing that into black and white. If you look at your picture in black and white, you can really clearly see what the darkest and what the lightest areas are, and it can really help you to see where you might need to increase the values, even for a color picture. As you can see, I am also slowly increasing the amount of pressure that I put on my pencil to create some darker marks here and there. Layering these colors and slowly blending them as well to create a nice full, a nice rich purple. I use my purple colors a lot, and for a big reason for that is that I love to create shadows in purple. Today the subject is purple as well, so my shadows stay in the same color, but I love adding purple to other colors for a bit of shading. You can see I added some extra lines around the leaves, and this is something that I love to do. It's just my own personal style, and I feel that it creates a little bit of movement around the leaves. So it's a bit of a trick from cartoons, and it's just something that I really enjoy in my drawings. So sometimes I add some random loose lines around areas of the drawing that I want to, have a bit of a sense of movement. So that's what I did here. I like the idea of these leaves blowing in the wind a little bit and really feeling loose and light and having a bit of movement. So you can see how I'm slowly adding much darker colors. Still just slowly taking my time. I'm very much into this project now. We're not in the sketching phase anymore. it always takes a little bit of time to ease into a new project. Every new drawing is new. You always have to sort of start from scratch a little bit again. Ease into what you're doing. Allow yourself to warm up. Some days your creative flow comes much easier than other days, but it's always there. And at this stage, I really have found my creative flow, and I'm just layering the colors, sometimes taking a little break, looking at my drawing from a distance and deciding where I want it to be a little bit darker, or if I'm happy with the amount of color that I have. And I want this picture to be really vibrant and fun, and the oranges to really pop, and orange and purple look really lovely next to each other. Yellow and purple are opposite on the color wheel, and they enhance each other. So if you have purple next to yellow, it makes the purple look more purple and the yellow more yellow, and orange also does that. Orange is very close to yellow, so it's a very similar effect. So I really want the orange to be popping, to be really nice and bright. The color pencils that I'm using today are Derwent procolour and Faber Castell Polychromos. The Polychromos is the richest color of the two, I would say. It blends the easiest, and the Derwent procolour layers a little bit more. I'd say that that's what I experience in them. And they're both some of my favorite pencils. I really love using them. I love how rich the colors are. Sometimes I make drawings with only one of the two brands, and sometimes I combine them, but they're the pencils that I use most for my professional work. I do have some other sets of pencils as well from different brands, but these are my personal favorites and I use them all the time. I'm not being sponsored, it's just what I'm using today, and I want to share that with you. I decided to add a little bit more yellow in the mix. So I just grabbed myself a new color, not one that I prepared beforehand, and I love adding yellow to my pictures. I often find that it just gives a little bit of an extra sunny effect, or it enhances the color. So very often when I'm making a drawing, I add a layer of yellow over it at the end or around it on the edges. So you can see I'm adding a little bit of yellow here and there, and this is just freestyling. There's no yellow in there in the photo. I'm just doing it because I love using it and I find that it looks really lovely. It's absolutely okay to change away, to move away from your reference picture sometimes and make a drawing truly your own. This is one of my favorite colors. It's a really warm red, sort of aubergine purple. I know I'm just listing a lot of different colors, but it's a very a unique color, very warm, that I love using in all of my drawings as well. So I'm adding some really fine lines with that, and I think it complements really nicely with that purple. You can see the pencil is getting a bit short. I might need a new one at some point soon. So just adding lots of fine lines, and that network of lines on those leaves is very intricate. So I want to make sure that there's enough detail in the picture. This is one of the final touches where I'm adding some really deep shadows with black. And I tend to stay away from black till the end of my artwork. I tend to save it till last, so to say, for that extra bit of contrast, that extra bit of dark values that you want to use to make your drawing a little bit more realistic. And the danger with black is to overdo it. If you create really dark outlines around your drawings, it can be a little bit unnatural, and black can be a bit overpowering sometimes. So less is more. You can always add an extra layer if you feel it's necessary, but it's much harder to take it away. little bit more purple here on the edges to make sure it's really clear against the background, and I am finished. So let me take away the tape. Let's have a closer look. If you enjoyed this video and you enjoyed making this flower with me, subscribe to my channel, as I'm posting weekly art videos for drawing and painting and lots of other materials. Make sure you click on that little bell as well, so you get updates every time I post a video, and I love to see you around here more. So stay tuned and I'll see you around soon.